Hi everybody, my name is Lydia Harris and I wanted to make this video and talk about some of my thoughts about the changes to the church education system honor code as well as the changes to the general handbook for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I think that some of the changes are really exciting, but the fact that all this drama happened the last 2 or 3 weeks about homosexual rhetoric being taken out, and then a clarification statement being put out later that said, we affirm that homosexual relations aren't in line with gospel standards. And as much as I think this is that I have a really strong testimony of the plan of salvation, and I know that gender is a really big part of the plan of salvation, and I really do have a testimony of that. But I feel like these changes were just really hurtful. I feel like there were people that, a lot of people are chalking it up to a misinterpretation by a bunch of BYU students, and I don't think that's what it was. I mean, it kind of was, but there was employees in the honor office that said, yeah, this means that you can date people of the same sex and you can hold hands. And to a lot of people that made sense. I know to a lot of other people, they were like, oh crap, that's a big no-no, and I think people are misinterpreting this. But an employee said this. And that's the really hard part about all of this, is that it was kind of like, hey, they took out this rhetoric about homosexual relationships. Does that mean I can have those now? And I just think that was really confusing for a lot of people. And I really, really, really feel for them. That breaks my heart. And I feel really sad that people felt that they were safer than they ended up being 2 weeks later when it got reversed. And I put that in air quotes because I don't think anything got reversed. I just think that there was, I don't know. I don't want to say that it's anybody's fault for taking too much liberty, but I do understand that it would be really hard to be an LGBTQ plus member of the LDS Church. You love the church and you have these two core feelings and beliefs that are seem to be really conflicting. I just really feel for that. I can't say that I know how it feels, but it really hurts me that, especially that these people who have these core conflicting beliefs, that they just felt like maybe they finally had an answer. I feel like it'd be really confusing and really hard, and you'd be struggling with that so much, and then you feel like you finally got an answer. What's the morality? Is it moral for me to date as long as I don't get married, as long as I don't have extramarital sex? And it felt like an answer. And then 2 weeks later, it was pretty much said, we still don't believe in homosexual relations. That would be really hard. And it would be a really hard life in general, but especially the last 2 weeks being a student at BYU or the other church schools, that would be really, really, really difficult. And so my heart goes out to you. I don't know what to tell you. I have no solutions for you, and I'm not coming here and making this video to say that I have any solutions, because I really, really don't. But I do understand having conflicting values. For example, I'm a feminist, and I know that's not the same as being LGBTQ, and I acknowledge that. But I really would love to be a scientist. I'm going to grad school, which a lot of people are like, why are you going to grad school when you really just want to be a mom? And I'm like, the thing is I do really, really, really want to be a mom. I'd love to be a stay-at-home mom. I also want to be a scientist. And I want to teach eventually. And not like high school. You don't teach high school with a PhD in physics or mechanical engineering. You go teach college, you do research. And I have this really strong desire to do that. And it's hard for me to come up with some sort of balance for that. And I still haven't figured that out. But I I do know that I have faith and that it'll work out, and that I'm just going to work and do the next right thing. And I've had some really strong spiritual promptings, personal revelation, to continue in my education. And I know that that's not a very good parallel, because having those feelings of wanting, liking the same gender is like not just like frowned upon. Like, you don't just get questions like, don't you want to be a mom? I mean, you do get that same question, I guess, but you get more questions like that. Don't you know that that's not righteous? And I have seen my loved ones struggle with this, and I don't know what the right thing to do is, because, you know, the people I've seen do it, I've seen people do it different ways, and some people just leave the church, which, if that's what you need to do, I understand. Leaving BYU, I also understand that. I'd love to have you here, but I understand that it doesn't feel safe sometimes. It doesn't feel like you're welcome. And I want you to know that I welcome you here. But I don't speak for everybody. There are people putting out the hashtag #SaveBYU, and that's like the opposite of Christ-like. What, we need to save BYU from the LGBTQ community? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And it is just the opposite of Christ-like to me. And I hope that my LGBTQ friends know that I'm on your side. I don't know what I would do in your situation, because some people just force themselves into an unhappy marriage because they're like, that's what I'm supposed to do. And in the history of the church, I feel like that's kind of been the encouraged path. And that really, like, hurts people. Not only does it hurt the person who's going against their feelings and their thoughts and their desires, it hurts the other people in their lives. It hurts the person they decide to marry, that they do, or even if they love them, it's not as much as maybe they think they could. And that just really is not a good environment to live in and to raise children in. And I just think that I have so much respect for that, and I think that they'll be blessed. I think that, you know, I've seen them be worthy temple recommend holding members of the church for like their whole lives, and I have so much respect for that, and I do think they'll be blessed. But is that really the best solution? And I don't know what the answer to that is. Sometimes to me it feels like it's the only solution. Solution in a really broad sense of the term, but I don't know what the other options are. It's live unhappily in a marriage that you, it doesn't line up with how you really feel. Living unhappily single forever. I don't envy anybody that has no companionship. That would be very hard to have no companionship. And so I really, really, really feel for this. And I hope that those of you who have been maybe a little bit confused about all of this, maybe I hope this brings some clarity. I mean, I know that I'm a straight person, and I can't say anything about how these LGBT people really feel, but I hope that coming from a perspective of somebody on the outside looking in, that the LGBT people feel at least a little bit understood by me, and that people who don't understand that can maybe try to start understanding that. That all being said, I really believe in the honor code. When you sign the honor code, you sign that you will live it, and not just live it on campus. Dress and grooming standards even it's required off campus as well. It's required in your place of living. This is why we have BYU approved housing, which is a whole different story. I think BYU approved housing is a little bit of a mess and could use some tender love and care, I think. But I really do believe in having the integrity to live the honor code. You agreed to live it, and you should. However, I understand that, I don't think that just because you slipped up, and I don't know what slip up means for everybody, for different people it means different things, doesn't mean you should be in danger of expulsion. And I also think that if you're good with your bishop, and good with the Lord, you should be good with the honor code office. There are things that you need to have punishments for, and I think punishment is a really strong word. But even I've gone through the repentance process. I've had privileges taken away. I've had my temple recommend taken away. I wasn't attending a church school at the time, but I've even heard of people attending church schools that get their recommend taken away, but not their ecclesiastical endorsement. And I think that the ecclesiastical endorsement should be the most important part of the honor code. The bishop says, you're good, and the stake president says, you're good, and they're kind of the mouthpiece of the Lord to you, and so that's kind of the Lord saying that you're good. And as long as you've been honest and upfront with those people, I really think that that should be the criteria. I don't think honor code should go away completely, but I really, really wish that as the church moves away from 3 hours of church and home teaching and visiting teaching, they're moving more towards this just take responsibility for the people around you. The church is a vehicle to get you to the celestial kingdom, to help you get there. I don't even think it gets you there. Like, if you go to church every week and, do your ministering, which used to be visiting teaching every month, I think that that doesn't necessarily qualify you for exaltation. But loving one another does. Living according to the knowledge that you have does. Serving others, and that does. That's what gets you to the celestial kingdom. And so I wish that we could move more towards this in every sense of the matter. Instead of, did you do your home teaching every month for the past 3 months in your interviews? It's like, are you really caring for those people that you're assigned to minister to? Are you ministering to other people in the Lord? Are you lifting where you stand? And I wish that we could, it takes a lot of gusto from the members. They have to be kind of truly converted, and I understand that that's a little bit of a lofty goal. Being truly converted, it doesn't just mean you were raised in the church. A lot of the time you kind of got away with that. You're like, I was raised in the church. I've been living this my whole life. I'm a faithful member of the church. I go to church on Sundays. I go to my mutual activities or whatever. And that was that. And you're like, I'm a good member of the church. But that's not it anymore. Come follow me. All of this is going to home-centered. It's you. It's on you. And as a young single adult, I think that that's maybe a little bit harder, because some people haven't had those really strong spiritual experiences that make them truly converted. Even a mission doesn't necessarily mean that you're truly converted. But I wish that we could go to that for the honor code. I understand that that includes people that aren't members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that would make that a little bit harder, because who's going to interview you and say, are you living according to your testimony? But for members of the church, that's what I think that interview with your bishop should be. Are you living according to the knowledge that you have, the testimony that you have? And if you are, great, you're good to go to BYU. I think people should be entitled to all blessings that they're worthy of. And I think that in the sections of the handbook that have been updated for people with homosexual thoughts, they've been very clear that homosexual people are welcome, that they're able to have callings and hold the priesthood if they're worthy of it, if they're living worthy to those principles. And I think that should have always been the stance of the church, but people have interpreted things differently. And I still understand that some bishops won't be supportive of people who are LGBTQ or have other problems. They're like, oh, so you kissed a girl and you're a girl. I think you should be expelled for that. Even though the Lord offers so much mercy. And the law of chastity is about more than extramarital sex. I totally think that. I think it's about a way of living. But it would be so hard, and I think that there should be less judgment there. And there is obviously way more to living the gospel than the letter of the law. It's about the spirit of the law. But I do think that there should be so much more mercy. And I have been offered so much mercy in my life. I've also lived through some justice. You have to wait this certain amount of time to be able to receive your temple recommend back or take the sacrament. And sometimes it's been, you have to wait this many months, and we can't change that. And other times it's like, until further notice, just don't take the sacrament. And I've had the most spiritual experiences of my life. Not all of the most spiritual, but some of them have been when a bishop has told me I'm forgiven. And I think that mercy is so beautiful and so important, and I have such a testimony in it, and I wish that was offered to more people. I've had some really great bishops, and I wish everybody had really great bishops. But I just wanted to say that I feel for those people that are struggling with this specific trial. There are many other trials, and this is just the one I've chosen to talk about today. But I also feel for the fact that there's like this double standard between like straight couples and homosexual couples. Like, straight people are so encouraged to date, even if they aren't planning on getting married. They're like, I'm too young to get married. But everybody's like, you better be going on dates. Are you going on dates? Blah, 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 blah. And I know that most people think that will eventually lead to marriage, but there are plenty of people that are just absolutely not ready for it. You could be like 35 and like not have found anybody ever and not really plan on finding anybody ever. Or even if you are, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be like judgmental of people that are old, but they're like, you need to keep dating, and you should date, even if it's just for fun. But you can't do that as a homosexual couple. Nobody encourages that, and I think that's such a double standard. And they said there was some rhetoric about homosexual dating with intent to marry. So many straight couples date without intent to marry. That's like even like such a Provo thing. Let's just hang out, Netflix and chill, man. Let's nickmo. And you can't do that as a homosexual couple, or people are like, it's the end of the world. But I mean, I know it's not like encouraged, but people are fine with it. And you could go talk to your bishop on Sunday and be like, yeah, we've been nickmoing, but it hasn't gone further than that. We haven't broken the law of chastity. I don't necessarily think that that's not breaking the law of chastity either. I don't know, like, it's between you and your bishop, but there's just such a double standard, and I understand how it's so unfair. Like I said, I really believe in the honor code, and you should have the integrity to live it if you're attending a BYU school. But I do understand that there's such a double standard, not only in the honor code, but also in the church. Sorry, I'm looking down at my notes. I just wanted to share my testimony that I know that the ideal family is a family with a man and a woman sealed in an eternal marriage. Even in the world, there's been studies that show that a man and a woman married have more happy, successful children, and that the purpose, one of the purposes of marriage is to procreate, and exaltation, eternal life, is eternal increase. It's having children. It's not about you and the person you're with, it's about your posterity. It is about the person you're with, because, I mean, it's so much easier if the person you're with also wants to be where you are, the celestial kingdom. And I really do have a testimony of that. I know that that's the ideal, not only in the worldly sense, but in the gospel sense. And, I mean, I didn't live that ideal. My parents are divorced. They both remarried, and there's been all sorts of drama about that in my life. And I still have a testimony of it. I was born in the covenant, and I still get to receive those blessings even if my parents aren't sealed together anymore. And I have a really strong testimony of this, and I think that everybody should strive for this ideal. But I understand that there's so many things that happen in life that make that ideal seem impossible. I mean, I'm not going to say impossible, because I don't think impossible is the right word for it. But I do know that people are happier this way. And I'm sorry for everybody that has roadblocks in the way of that. I've had roadblocks in the way of that. And it hurts my heart. It really does, and I hope you know that. I hope that you see that. But I just wanted to share that I do have a testimony of it, but I do want people to know that I see the struggle, and I know that it's hard, and that I don't think that these last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, were meant to be this bait and switch. I don't think that anybody was trying to catch anybody in the act of anything. But it was really hard and really unfair, and if you were directly affected by this, you've been hurting probably a lot. And I'm sorry, and I feel for you. And I'm not going to sing it, but there's this primary song that I love, and I want to read the words to you. If you don't walk as most people do, some people walk away from you, but I won't. If you don't talk as most people do, some people talk and laugh at you, but I won't. I'll walk with you, I'll talk with you. That's how I'll show my love for you. Jesus walked away from none. He gave his love to everyone. So I will. Jesus blessed all he could see, then turned and said, come follow me. And I will. I'll walk with you, I'll talk with you. That's how I'll show my love for you. For anybody struggling, that's how I feel. And I pray that more people will feel loved and understood, and more people will reach out with love and concern, and even if they can't understand, that they can at least withhold judgment and just love one another. I think people that are trying to live the gospel, even people who are sinners trying to live the gospel, we're all sinners, but even people that you disagree with how they're sinning, because that's all it is. It's, I'm sinning differently than you, you're sinning differently than me, you're different. I hope that we can all put aside these different sins and these differences that we have and just love each other and encourage each other in the gospel. That's also part of the honor code, is encourage others to live the principles of the honor code. And this isn't just about the honor code. This is about the gospel, the pure, simple gospel, that we need to be ministering, lifting where we stand, serving those that we can. And I hope that we can all really, really let that sink in and change our lives. And thanks for listening. I hope that this perspective was helpful, and that you know that I care for all of you. And if you need me, I'm here. I don't have any answers, I've already said that, but I'll listen. And thank you for listening.